Hi, guys. Welcome back to another Love Soul Movement podcast where we are learning how to love ourselves in the deepest kind of ways. This week we're going to talk about relationships. And it's the way that this kind of like came to me. I was going to do a podcast with my dear friend Steph. We're waiting until after Mercury retrograde, which will be next week. Mercury goes direct on Tuesday, by the way. So as I'm doing this, we have 5 full days left. Mercury goes direct Tuesday the 22nd at 7 p.m. Central. So we'll have like the whole day of it being stationed in the direct. It's so annoying when it stations. Anyway, I digress. Relationships. And I guess this is a really good time to kind of talk about relationships because one of the biggest things that happens during Mercury retrograde is your ex. Like, everybody talks about how their exes all come back. I was actually really happy this year, like for the first time, and even the last Mercury retro, no, I don't remember. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the last Mercury retrograde was in February and March. It was during Pisces season. But everybody talks about their exes coming back, and I was really proud because none of my exes texted me this time or messaged me or tried to find me in some. That was exhilarating. I mean, I guess I still have a couple of days left. I should keep my mouth shut. And it's not that I don't care for my exes. They're just, well, I guess I can take that back because I do talk to the fathers of my children and they're considered my exes. But outside of that, I don't not get along with my exes. I'm usually pretty good friends with them. I just, like, we don't need to be in each other's lives all the time on a regular, and don't come and try and like get with me 15 years later when you've had an epiphany. Like, what is that? No. So yeah, other outside of the baby daddies, I like to say that in this city because I tell people that I have my baby daddies I'll say that in conversation instead of the father of my kids. I'll call them my baby daddies because in this town they're like, ee! And I like to make waves. I like to stir the pot, as they say. Kansas City. In this city, Kansas City, Missouri. Anyway, so relationships. And this came up because I am taking questions, tarot questions, astrology questions, and all of that on Hey Hero. So this is a good time to let you guys know that if you would like a short, quick, to the point, inexpensive question answered, you can go over to Hey Hero. They're $20 per question right now. That's an introductory offer. That's not going to last forever. The link, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description box. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Anchor, you can go to heyhero.com and look me up as either Betsy or Fearless Intuition. Either one will work. But yeah, it's been really fun. I'm really enjoying doing these like short, quick videos and helping people at the same time. But it's been interesting because most of them, outside of like maybe 2 questions so far, have been about relationships. And I'm not surprised because usually people come to tarot readers, astrology, to talk about relationships or to talk about career or to talk about purpose. Those are the 3 big, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's other things too, but mainly Those three big things. And relationship is number one. That gets exhausting, by the way, having to repeat the same thing, because there's a really big misconception in the Matrix. And we were all programmed and conditioned to believe certain things about relationships by watching TV shows, by watching commercials, like just things like where the wife and the husband are bickering at each other and degrading each other, and it's supposed to be like healthy banter between the two of them. And I'm like, that's terrible. Like, why are you saying these horrible, you guys know what I'm talking about. Why on shows, right? Like, to, you know, and they do it for entertainment value, but people will actually believe that this is how relationships are supposed to go. Like, for example, you guys, like, the couple goes to a party, and the woman's talking to a friend, and the husband comes up and tells her, we're going to go outside, and I'm going to go outside with the guys and, you know, talk outside or whatever, da 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 da. And then she, you know, he kisses her on the cheek and he goes outside, and the woman will look at her friend and be like, well, you know that he's just going to go out there and smoke a cigarette. And he knows, you know, that I don't appreciate that. He knows that I don't appreciate that, but he's going to do it anyways. Just like, that's an example, but that's kind of the thing that, you know, like, it's like a war between men and women all the time. There's like this constant competition and constant war. And I'm not against like feminism. I'm not against that at all. I'm not against equal pay. I'm not against a lot of things when it comes to the equality between men and women. What I am against when it comes to men and women is women trying to compete with men, because we shine in a whole different kind of way than men shine, right? We all have our different kinds of shine, if you will. And you can't compete with somebody when you're not even on the same playing field. And I'm not saying that one shine is better than the other shine. It's basically two species is really what we're talking about here. And so we get into these relationships where really there's that competition there. And like, I remember being in marriages where the first one, I trusted my husband to pay the bills. I stayed home with the boys for as long as I could actually do it before I went totally insane, because I was not built to be a stay-at-home mom at all. I was like, but give me work. And I ended up getting a job, but I was only literally I got that job so that I could have health insurance and pay for health insurance for myself and the boys and my husband, and pay for daycare. That's the only, and I maybe had like $30 after that, after every check or something. And I was fine with that. As long as I was getting out of the house and I did not have to watch the boys. It was like, I was done at one point. It was, you know, and I went through mom guilt. Like, that's one of the biggest things, is like, women really end up like getting shamed for some things, but that's going down another path. But yeah, there's a lot of mom guilt with that. And I guess that sort of goes along with what we're talking about in a little bit, in kind of a way, because women trying to compete with men in business, in the business world, and women being looked at as the one that has to have the job, you know, like, nobody talks about, can a man have it all? Of course a man can have it all, because a man's always had it all, right? He's always had the business, had the home, had the family. he has the golf game on the weekends, has his personal time, has his man cave. Men have always had it all. But so why do we ask, can women really have it all? Can she have the business? Can she have the family? I guess this is kind of turning into like a feminist talk, but I'm not, that's not the point. But that's the thing is like when that kind of equality isn't there between the two, like both of them can be money makers, right? Within relationships and stuff. But that's the thing is we don't look at each other as equals. We don't. And there are some ways that I feel like we shouldn't have to look at our significant others as an equal. Am I going to make money for myself while I'm with my partner? Absolutely. He's going to make money. I'm going to make money. Doesn't matter who spends the money. He can spend my money. What I don't care. It's friggin' money. Like I will make more. Not a big deal, right? Um, but that's the thing is like when you start separating roles and allowing one side of those separated roles to have more of an edge. It's not an equal relationship. It can't be an equal relationship. And here's my point with saying all of that. When humans get into relationships, they automatically think of the other person as a possession. This person is mine. Look at this guy I snagged. Isn't he cute? He's mine. Um, my voice got all froggy. Hold on a second. It was getting to that froggy, sexy, sultry state that I don't like at all. Um, so when we get into these relationships and we allow ourselves to, instead of looking at the other person as a possession, but looking at the other person as someone that you value, right? You value who they are. You value the position they're in, they are in your life. You value how they help level you up. You don't look at them as a possession, but you look at them as something you value. You feel a different kind of love for that person. One of the biggest things, and I've been this girl before, but for women, sometimes I've seen men be like this, and I don't have anything against marriage. I've just been there and done that times two. And I don't really, I don't have anything against it. I just don't really believe in it. I don't believe in what the marriage of today stands for. Like when gay marriage became legal, that to me was more of a true marriage story than, a man and a woman getting married and signing, honestly, because there was so much more emotion behind that than what we do as a man and a woman. And I know that sounds a little biased and judgy, and maybe it is, and I'm trying not to be judgy or biased, but I've literally been in a marriage, and now that I look back at it, two marriages of convenience, kind of, and not necessarily love, if you will. But when you are a woman banking on or expecting to have a proposal done for you, and you expect that from this person that you feel is yours, that they belong to you. This person, this is my boyfriend. That can be very disappointing. 100% of the time. When you place expectations on people, on situations, on whatever it is that you are dealing with, even outside of relationships, you place expectations on anything, on yourself even, you will be disappointed 100% of the time because it will never turn out the way that you expected it to turn out. Never. In saying that, allowing yourself for that to be your goal and thinking once he's married to me, he'll be mine and I won't have to worry anymore. Hate to tell you, that's not true. Really is not 100% not true. And the fact that, and it's not even the worrying part that's not true, because you're still going to worry. Trust me, you will still worry, even if you have a piece of paper. Because the worrying is deeper than that piece of paper. It's something that's within you. It's an insecurity that's within you. That's what the worry is. So it's going to happen no matter what, whether you're married or not. That piece of paper does not ensure that anybody's going to be faithful. What, you just going to like crumple up the piece of paper and throw at the person that cheated on you? That'll tell them. That'll stop them in their tracks. But this is what I'm saying. Why is that the goal? Because as little girls, little girls, and I'm noticing that in a lot of the girls in the generations after me don't have this matrix pre-programmed and conditioned point of view, but there are still many that do, because I've already done questions for them in the last couple of days. But many are really hoping for that ring. They were conditioned and programmed to believe that that's what was going to make them happy. You go to school, you graduate from high school, you go to college, you meet the love of your life while you're in college, you graduate college, you immediately get married after college and buying that big house and everything, and you start having babies to satisfy the parents, and then you find out that your husband's boinking the lady across the street and you get divorced. That is the American way. I mean, if anybody needed to know what America relationships look like, just rewind the last 10 seconds, I'll tell you again. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? So to have that kind of expectation, want, desire, I need the ring. Gotta have the ring. And it's gotta be big, and it has to be like I, clarity, like H, clarity. It's gotta be at least 1.5 carats. And we're programmed to believe that that's what matters on all the TV shows. I was even watching, I love Friends. I mean, who doesn't? I'm sure there's plenty out there that don't. But I was watching Friends, and I watched the episode with Monica and Chandler getting engaged. And she was clearly that little girl that was told that you're going to be happy once you're married. You'll be happy with a boyfriend. You'll be happy once you're married. You'll be happy once you have kids. You'll be happy, da-da-da-da-da. She had the wedding book. She knew exactly what she wanted. And they said something like the 4th grade. She'd had it since the 4th grade. We are programmed early in life to believe that our happily ever after resides in spending $40,000 on a one-night party and then $100,000 on a divorce 2 years later. You know? Like, who wants to do that? But we don't think about that. We don't think about that, and we want to think of the pretty, the butterflies and all of that stuff. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to want to get married. Like, if you want to get married, that is what you want to do. That's great. I hope you manifest that. I hope you manifest a wonderful person to marry. I really do. If you enjoy it for the ceremony, if you whatever, I am not against marriage. I think that marriage can be absolutely beautiful. I really do. Like, if two people are dedicated to do that with each other, that's great. But what's really interesting to me is people say, yeah, I'm really dedicated to this person. I mean, even in the marriage vows, it's like, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, till death do us part. Man, and our grandparents knew what that meant. I'm sure our grandparents were not faithful to each other during their marriages. No. And people who like to believe that sweet little story about their grandparents, that's fine. Go ahead and believe that. But I guarantee you, staying together for 75 years without straying once or twice doesn't really sound very doable. And maybe they were. Maybe it was doable. Maybe it was a different kind of time, but I know that the way that my grandmother is, just how she is as a person, there was definitely not opportunities to love each other freely and be able to look at each other and say, I love you, but I need some time away from you right now. Like, stuff like that. And not stifling the other person's goals and like the things that they want to do. The end of my second marriage was when I decided I wanted to go back to school and finish my psychology degree that I'd been trying to get for damn near 10 years. And so I got a job where I was still making pretty good money, but I wasn't a manager. I was taking less responsibility. Still making pretty decent money, but I also wanted to go to night school, so I needed a job where I wasn't doing as much. I wasn't taking on responsibility. I wouldn't have to work at home, stuff like that. So then I was going to night school to finish some classes, and that's when my husband, he's the one that wanted me to go. He said, by all means, we can make it work out. I was like, great, that's awesome. And then he decided after a couple, I think it was a month or two into me doing that, he was done. He's like, I've already finished all my classes. I don't want to do that anymore. And that was back when I expected things of my husband that I shouldn't have been expecting from him. And vice versa. He shouldn't have been expecting things from me either. But we weren't on the same page anymore. Clearly, we were not on the same page anymore. And I think it's a blessing that I've always known when it's time for me to leave. But there is a clear red flag when your significant other doesn't want you to grow and thrive. And usually that goes along with narcissistic tendencies, because he was seeing my confidence start to get bigger, and I had new friends because I was going to these new classes, and he didn't like it. He didn't like it. He was losing control, right? And unfortunately, the reason why I bring this up is because this happens to women all the time, and we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about it enough. And it probably happens to men all the time too, and they don't talk about it enough. They stay silent. They say, I've put all of my dreams aside to satisfy this person. Hold on one second for me. I had to cough and I did not want to do that in the microphone. But yeah, I mean, men too are putting their dreams away, and they're doing it because they want to be in a relationship, and they think that they have to compromise in some way, or they have to put things, some men, when they have babies, they end up selling their motorcycles and buying a minivan. It's one kid, you don't need a whole minivan for one kid. Why are you selling your motorcycle? Just get another car. Whatever. It's just silly. There are just some things that I don't understand people do. Some, like, you're acting like it's the end of the world sometimes, like when we do things for other people, even though we don't necessarily want to be doing those things for other people, and then we have the audacity to throw a fit for doing those things for those people. It's like, who asked you? Who asked you to do these things for me anyways? Nobody asked you to sell your bike. Nobody asked you to do this. Nobody asked you to do that. Blah, 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 right? But yeah, so whether it's the man in the relationship or the woman in the relationship, the expectation of things, and I've never been a man, so I can't, I can't speak for them. I've raised 3 boys, but that does not equal me being a man. Trust me. I promise you. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't even halfway begin to understand what men are about. But the thing is it's just not talked about enough. And I'll probably have a divine masculine talk or a masculine talk, have a few men on here and talk about it, because it really isn't. It's not talked about enough when men feel like they're stuck in relationships or whatever, and nobody says anything, and then we feel like a complete asshole when we leave, and it's like, well, I felt stuck, but nobody was saying anything anyways. Which brings me to the next topic that I wanted to bring up with this is communication. First, humans are not possessions. We like to think that the other people belong to us. They do not belong to us. Communication. And I used to be really bad with communication because I was never taught how to communicate effectively. And especially when I would get into relationships, I was a pretty bad communicator. And a lot of the times would end up, like really bad on my end, because I would feel very misunderstood. Well, of course I was very misunderstood. I wasn't telling anybody what I needed or whatever, right? And I know that there are a lot of women out there that are really bad communicators because we have felt our voices taken away from us most of our lives. So then we get into relationships and we don't know how to talk. So that's the thing. And as a tarot reader, as an astrologer, I get so many relationship questions like, is he going to be this way? Is he going to do this for me? When is this going to happen? Stuff like that. And I literally always, one of the first things that I say is, if you haven't had this, clearly they haven't had this conversation with their significant other. And if you haven't had that conversation with your significant other, and even more so, if you're afraid to have that conversation with your significant other, you're already in a relationship where you're lying. Because you're lying by omission. You're not even like being honest with how you feel about certain. Don't go to a tarot reader and ask if that guy's going to come back to you or leave, or what, or is this guy going to leave me for, I'm like, have you talked to him even? You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest red flag for me. And I can tell that you haven't had that conversation with him, because if you would have had that conversation, the way that he responded to you would tell you everything that you needed to know. Because if he comes at you in an angry, defensive kind of way, that probably means that you triggered a wound, and the answer is whatever, it's no. Whatever you were asking him, it's 100% no. If he comes at you and in a gentle way says, "Oh, I understand why you're asking me that. Let's talk about it." And is like an adult and has emotional maturity, trust me, they're out there. Trust me, they're out there. I know women are like, "Where's that guy? Where's the emotionally mature guy?" I found one. But that's the thing, is like the way that anybody responds to you in any way, shape, or form, you're going to absolutely have every single answer you need. But it starts with you communicating. 100% communication. You'll never question anything ever again. And I mean, and even like, I just say what stuff that's on my mind. Like, I really don't have a filter anymore because I don't have energy to have a filter anymore. And like, I'll straight up ask people the questions that are going on up here. I'll just ask them, because to me, it's better for me to ask that question than have that question like rolling around in my brain over and over and over again. And that actually wasn't until very recently that I started doing that, because there were some things that I couldn't talk to my partner about for a long time, even though he gives me the space, like the soft space to be open. I still, and because it's a process, like there are wounds there, and there are traumas that I have to like deal with all underneath some of the things that I carry, and so sometimes it's still very hard for me to do. The journey that we're on as humans, it's a never ending healing. Like people keep thinking like, when is this over? When is this healing business over? It never is. It just isn't going to be. So dive into it, like get comfortable, allow yourself to like get comfortable with those demons and really process them and see what you get from it. But yeah, communication is huge. And so if you're a person that's listening to this and down the road you decide you want to ask a tarot question, if you want to get a tarot reading or something like that, and there's a question about your significant other in it, I want you to ask yourself, if I brought this up to my significant other, would that bring fear? Would I be afraid to bring this up to my significant other? And if I would be afraid to do that, why am I afraid to do that? Am I afraid because my significant other has shown me in the past that they, by things that they've done, that they would not be good with this kind of topic or this kind of conversation? Or have I said something like this in the past and it created a wound, or it was some kind of trauma that I was in? Like, which one is it, right? And like, as you eliminate each kind of thing, you start to realize, because if you can honestly tell yourself that your person would be down for talking with you about any single topic that you bring up with them, they are 100% a keeper. Because they're there to help you grow too, not to help your ego, but to help your soul grow too. Like, they're there to be supportive to you. You can 100% be in a relationship and still be healing. When I met my partner, I still had a lot of healing to do. I thought I was on the good side of healing, and then he showed up and there was a lot more there was like so much more. But that's the thing, is you can still be in a relationship with somebody as long as that somebody is your person who understands you need a soft place to land sometimes and doesn't get defensive about the things that your ego brings up, doesn't get defensive about the things that you need to discuss, on a deep level. I think that is really, like, when we look at it in a whole kind of way, that thing is probably the most important, is being able to communicate with each other. And it's not just, we say communicate with each other, but like, I'm talking about, like, I mean, I know that there are things that I've said to my partner that nobody else knows about me. And I've been able to trust him with that, with some things that I've said about myself, because he has shown me that, like, he doesn't have to prove anything to me, but just by being who he is, he's shown me that he's trustworthy. Those are the people that you keep around. The people that you don't keep around are the ones that are always going to keep fighting the ego, and keep battling you back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and always blaming you and always saying that it's your fault constantly, over again, over and over and over again. Now, for some of you that have been in relationships for a really long time and you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, Betsy, I have to leave my person now because they're not that person to me. I don't want you to freak out and just decide that you're going to leave your relationship. I would actually more so propose that you go to your significant other and sit down and ask them if they would be willing to try some things with you, and start talking to each other and communicating with each other and doing things like, like team building things together, like trusting each other with certain things, and that you haven't felt like you could trust each other with. And if that doesn't work, then maybe it's time to let go of each other. Now, so what I'm talking about is a conscious coupling, basically, is where both of you are self-actualized, self-realized, self-actualized. So you're aware of your own bullshit. And so when you get into a partnership with with your significant other, the other person, you both realize that you will always come first to yourself. And that sounds very selfish, right? But the only reason why it's selfish is because the Matrix told you that it was selfish. If you are not focusing on your journey, if you're not focusing on the things that you need to take care of in your life, if you're not focusing on your own healing and your own heart space, and you're constantly focusing on your partners and you're constantly focusing on their healing and all of that, if you're not focusing on that, this is not going to work. The two of you are not going to work. You can't heal other people. Healers don't even heal other people. Healers help other people and teach them how to heal themselves. So, and we do that by healing ourselves. You see? So, be aware of yourself. They're aware of themselves. When you unconditionally love yourself, you're going to be able to unconditionally love another person, and vice versa. Like, it won't even be a question for you. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's so worth it. It's so absolutely worth it. And that's the love soul vibe. That kind of vibration that you have, that kind of love, that unconditional love that you create within yourself, and you have unconditional love for somebody else, and that vibration between those two, that's love soul. But it starts with you. And it starts with no expectations. So what do we do if there's ever like a separation, right? Let's talk about that. Because people look at breakups these days as negative things. And, I mean, a lot of times there are things that are done to one of the people in the relationship that creates the negativity of that breakup, right? But if you're conscious and aware of yourself, you're not going to do those negative things to hurt the other person. If there's ever a separation between a conscious couple, right? You're not going to do something to hurt the other person. So that's why being in communication with each other, because when one of you realizes that your journey is going in a different direction than the other person's, if you don't have that open field of communication where you can go to your significant other and say, I think that this is where we separate. And maybe it's for a while, maybe it's forever, but you don't know. And it's not that it's not heartbreaking. It's not that it's just like, okay, let's go, whatever. Cool, it was nice knowing you, chum. No, it wouldn't be anything like that. It would be heartbreaking. But at the same time, you also realize that you can't, look, I'm getting all emotional talking about it. You can't hinder the other person's growth, right? That's not what you signed up for when you got into the conscious coupling, is you decided in that moment that you weren't going to hinder somebody's growth. So regardless of how it happens, the communication has to be there in the beginning, throughout the entire relationship, and in the separation, should that happen. See, and that's the thing, is where I'm saying, should it happen? Because I don't know what the future is going to bring. Sure, I could throw down some cards, I could look at the astrology, but when it comes down to it, I 100% don't know anything that's going to happen down the road. And because of that, I'm not placing any expectations on myself. I'm not placing any expectations on my partner. I'm not placing any expectations on the future. And that's a flow. That's when you know that you're aligned to your journey, because you're allowing yourself to walk in a path and feel your way through it, instead of logically constantly thinking about the path that you're on. You're feeling your way through it. And when you feel your way through your path and you end up in a relationship with somebody and you end up in a conscious coupling with that, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is sort of amazing, so I'm not going to do anything to screw it up. Let's just keep on, doing our purpose, kind of thing, right? The way that we screw up relationships is that we overthink them. We don't communicate, and we hold on to all of our traumas from the past, and we let that other person trigger us. And instead of healing those traumas, we keep stuffing them down, and then thinking that marriage is going to solve it, or a baby's going to solve it, or buying a house is going to solve it. Whereas every single one of those things, literally in psychology, they teach you that getting married is stressful. Buying a new house is stressful. Having a baby is stressful. And some people dying is stressful, right? Well, people dying, obviously that's stressful, but would have thought that those other three would have made people go on Prozac? I mean, like, seriously. So instead of worrying about what the outside looks like, instead of worrying about what your last name's going to be, instead of worrying about the size of the diamond and the clarity of the diamond, look at what your purpose is. And if your significant other is supposed to be with you on that purpose, then enjoy it. Enjoy every single second. Have parties to celebrate anniversaries that you've had with each other. It doesn't even have to be anniversaries about the day that you met or whatever. Like, it could be the anniversary that you decided to I don't know, buy your first car together or whatever, like something silly. Like you can celebrate at any time. It doesn't have to be a wedding. It doesn't have to be because of a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a birthday. Anytime, right? And that's the other thing is we get into marriages and it literally looks like a job. People like start wearing neutral colors. Have you noticed that? Everybody that gets married wears like pastels, at least here, or like neutral. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up now. Like, I'm not going to get myself in any trouble. All right. Well, I'm going to get off my soapbox as well about relationships. I feel like I could talk about this subject for a really, really long time, but when it comes down to it, you know, loving yourself is going to get you so much further in your life than worrying about the way that you look or, what your title is or the clothes that you're wearing, the brand of clothes that you're wearing or who you're marrying or how big the diamond is or whatever it is, right? Like, honestly, just loving yourself is going to give you so much more. And I can tell you that to be 100% true because I used to be that other person. I was project manager for telecom for 15 years. I had all of the diamonds. I even had a chocolate diamond at one point. All the cars were bought for me. All of the brand name clothes were bought for me. The houses were, I've been there. And I can tell you that I'm happier now with the crystals around my neck than I've ever been. And that's because I love myself. And I love myself enough to know that nobody else is ever going to love me the way that I love myself. Not even my partner. He does his damnedest. He really works on it. It's very close, very, very close. But nobody should ever love you more than you love yourself. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to daddies out there. And take care and be good. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.